There's one incredible benefit of psychedelics on human mind and body that needs to be mentioned, and is the healing and therapeutic effects psychoactive substances have in curing mental disorders. This will be an introduction into a video coming soon about the power of psychedelics on human mind in comparison to conventional psychotherapy. In this video, I will describe and give you reports from other psychonauts about the encounters with machine of doctors and how they can help you. It is a very interesting aspect of communicating with machine elves because even if you don't get a chance to meet them on your journeys, you're very likely to be fixed, cured, or healed by a machine elf doctor. The reports of these entities appearing to offer help with traumatic memories, personality disorders, or depression are very frequent, and most of them have a common theme. Before we all describe our experiences, I want to ask you to support independent content creators like me and 434. There are many ways to donate and sponsor this channel, and you can see the methods now on the screen, and all the links are in the video description. Thank you for your generosity, and remember that your support makes a huge difference in mine and other people's lives, including future generations of psychonauts. Machine elf doctors appear on my psychedelic journeys regularly, usually every few trips. My first contact with them happened within 2 hours of my first mushroom experience. It was an entity that diagnosed me with a serious emotional and psychological injury, and it identified and extracted a heavy concrete-like vest from my body. Once it was removed, after 20 years, I was cured of depression that hasn't returned since. On my next trip, I was told to lay down on a chaise longue in what looked like a psychiatrist's office. As I started talking to the shrink entity, other machine elf doctors standing behind this outer-dimensional couch started inserting tools into my head, fixing and adjusting something in my brain. As this was happening, I was undergoing some sort of a metaphysical electric shock therapy, and it took a long time for them to do it, but once they were done, the communication became much clearer and much faster. Machine elf doctors return every few trips to rearrange and readjust biological and transcendental elements in my body and in my brain. It seems our hormonal and emotional balance gets distorted and requires regular maintenance, and it works both on the physical and metaphysical level. Machine elf doctors show up voluntarily to do their job when they think it is necessary to adjust, fix, or modify our biological mechanisms to enhance our metaphysical capabilities. It is like tuning the frequency of remote consciousness to match the frequency of our physical bodies, and it always works. The next few days, I feel like I have been put back together or readjusted to the reality that I'm in, and it allows me to be more relaxed, more resistant to stress, and to just feel great in general. Because the doctor entity visits are so frequent and the experience with them are so universal, I would also want to let you listen to Jack, aka TripWhip, who you might remember from a podcast we recorded together some time ago, Starpilot33, who you all know very well, and Devin, one of the 434 viewers who contacted me to describe an interesting encounter he had with these machine elf doctors. I hope you enjoyed their stories. Let's start with Devin.
A couple of months ago, I had a spontaneous healing experience under the guidance of psilocybin mushrooms. I say spontaneous because the day that this occurred, I didn't have any intention whatsoever of taking any psychoactive substances. As the morning went on, I started to feel this strange feeling that I was being called or summoned by either a higher version of myself or some type of awareness that existed outside of the physical realm that I spend most of my waking consciousness in. So I resisted it slightly at first because I had some other things that I was excited to do that day, but as that intuition got stronger and synchronicities started to show up, I eventually surrendered to it. So I went into my room, locked the door, in my usual fashion, just went into a state of silent darkness and ate about 3.5 grams of dried cubensis mushrooms. So pretty quickly time started to dissolve, but I would estimate about 45 minutes to an hour or so in is when the doctors showed up. So these doctors didn't really have any type of physical appearance. I don't recall them having bodies necessarily, or necessarily even seeing them, but I was on my back and it felt as if there were about 6 of them around me, very much like a hospital bed or a surgery table, and they were all looking down at me. And what they started to do was give me what I would call a dental surgery. And so they went into each tooth with some type of vibrating device and buzzed what felt like the nerves of each of the teeth in my mouth. So there's an idea in Chinese medicine that we have these meridian points that connect each of our teeth to different organ systems in different parts of the body. And my guess is that they were aware of this information and they used my dental cavity as almost like a circuit board to operate and upgrade my entire physical body. So I don't know how long the procedure lasted, but it was not very long. They went into each tooth, like I said, and when they were finished, it had felt so wonderful while they were doing it. And that was one of the most interesting parts, is that it felt like complete ecstasy. And when they were finished, I asked them, a little bit embarrassingly, if they would be willing to continue doing it a little bit longer because it was so enjoyable. And they didn't really say anything back because they didn't use any hearable language, but they gave me what I would say is the energetic equivalent of an eye roll, much like your surgeon would give you if you asked for another surgery after the surgery was complete. So after that, the doctors pretty much disappeared. They didn't say anything. There was no official end point. They just vanished out of my awareness. And for the rest of the time that I was in this space, I just kept getting repeated examples of how the world that we live in is essentially a world of twos. And it seemed really insistent of showing me that everything that we experience is about duality and polarity on this plane here on Earth. And they seemed to think that this was very, very important, and they showed me repeated examples for several hours about how everything that we experience is in that state of either being or non-being in this plane of duality. So the entire experience lasted about 6 hours, and when it was finally over, and since then, my biology has been completely upgraded. Every single cell in my body functions better than it ever has. I really feel like this surgery was not just fixing something in my mouth by any means, but more of an upgrade of my entire biology. I sleep better, I breathe way better, which is something that I used to struggle with for many years. Now it's not an issue at all. And I feel this greater sense of connectivity to not just the earth, but myself, my own body, other people, and my entire experience of life. So I've been hearing other people having similar experiences in terms of these upgrades. I don't know if it has something to do with adjusting to a new reality, but it's definitely profound, and I hope that it helps somebody out.
I've had encounters with these machine-off doctors for a long time now, over a period of a couple of years in fact. But the most vivid experience was my most recent one, and it happened on the tail end of all of these reports about, these machine-offs basically contacting machine-off channelers and explaining that there's a big global shift happening. And I was listening to some of these reports online via your channel, Peter, and being the main source, And after watching these videos, I instinctively had this feeling to smoke DMT, which I hadn't felt for a very, very long time. But all of a sudden, I just wanted to have DMT and, 3 hits at that, like a proper dose of DMT. So I did. I took 3 hits and laid down in bed, and I just remember suddenly seeing out of the darkness it looked like the backside of caterpillars kind of like rolling out and stretching out, and then these machine-off doctors emerged throughout the backside of these caterpillars and kind of descended down upon me. So it was difficult for me to ascertain exactly what their appearance was, because whenever I've encountered these machine-offs in this way, when they want to perform a certain procedure on me, they don't like me to be thinking. There's always this feeling that I'm not meant to have any thoughts, because if I do, it's going to interfere with the procedure being as clean as possible. So I'm kind of lacking any of a kind of awareness. There's a very, very minimal amount of awareness. So all I can really say is they kind of looked like white humans without any recognizable features or discernible features. Just kind of like a white silhouette. And these machine-off doctors, they descended down upon me, and one of them had a masculine energy, and it put its hand on my head and his other hand on my heart. And the other machine-off doctor had a feminine energy, and she started doing some work on my eye. It seemed as if she had a needle and thread in her hand. And after a couple of seconds, I just felt this massive release of tension in my eye. And incredibly, it wasn't a tension that had built up during this trip. It was a tension that I'd been carrying while I was sober. I'd been carrying it with me for a very long period of time. And suddenly, in a matter of seconds, she released this tension, and it just felt like I could widen my eye, or do so at least with much more ease, because all of this exhaustion had been removed from me, because I have been feeling like a spike of energy has just taken over me. And it was only a singular eye. It was only, I believe, my left eye that the work was done on. And then she, kind of removed her tools, her needle and thread, and the two of them ascended above me and disappeared back into the darkness. And just like that, the trip was over. And then I opened my eyes, and ever since this procedure, I felt an incredible shift in my consciousness. And it doesn't seem like one that's temporary. I've been getting a lot more opportunities arising around me, and no resistance to accepting these opportunities. In fact, there's vigor in me right now. There's this energy that's just been pumped up, and I can't explain it, but I just want to accept these opportunities. It's an incredible feeling that's taken hold of me. So yeah, that was my most recent and also my most vivid experience with these machine elf doctors.
And as far as the machine elves and the doctor spirits, I saw them on the very first trip I ever had. I think it was like 1 gram that I was on, and the very first thing that happened was I was laying on the floor, and it just felt like I had these doctors surrounding me, and they weren't like fractal geometric elves. It was more sort of almost cartoonish like, but without faces. But clearly they were discussing my condition, and they were, consulting among themselves about what were they going to do. And I got the feeling they were saying like, wow, this one needs a lot of work. Like, we've got a lot of work to do here with this one. And just assessing my situation. And now it's like before every trip, usually in the very beginning, I'll get visited by some sort of a doctor spirit that does a checkup. And it's not like a full, complete tune-up like I needed in the past. Sometimes it's just sort of like a quick check before going on the rest of the trip. But definitely there's some kind of a condition check before I start. And I've seen ones that look very like Amazonian, very indigenous looking shapes. I had very, very strong Native American presences with the doctor spirits.
Meeting machine elves is an incredible experience enough, but being cured or physically fixed by an alien doctor is beyond magical. I highly recommend psychedelics for that one reason alone. It has impact not only on the quality of your trip, but also on your mental and physical health in this reality, which is truly unbelievable and unexplainable. If you had similar contact with doctor entities, describe it in the comment section. If you wish to contact Starpilot33, TripWhip, or Devin, the links are in the video description. Thank you for watching, and please support me in my mission in raising the frequency of fellow travelers in this realm. All links in the video description. Subscribe, like, and share this video. Visit the websites of the artist and the musician I featured in this video. Leave your email address at news.b434.com. Remember about b434.com and join 434 social media on YouTube, Facebook, BitChute, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and VK. Talk to each other on Telegram, Reddit, and Discord. All links below.